Here we are again. I am your host, Jessica Koch. This is Profound Professionals, the interview series that has been coming to you for 7 years now from all over the world. We find industry experts that help improve your personal life or grow your business. Yes, let's grow it big. Let's think big. Let's think abundance and massive prosperity because it is meant for you. And today I have an amazing guest, something we must do, or else our business and our personal life will be a thought of yesterday. So today I have with me Dan. He is a missionary for breath, the art of breath master, that you need to breathe and maybe you're not doing it right. As a baby, we knew naturally and more instinctively how to breathe. As grown-ups, sometimes we need a lesson in this again. And so I have brought to you Dan. So talk to us about breathing, Dan.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, you don't have to twist my arm to talk about breathing. As you said, I'm a missionary for the breath. It's my passion. It's my profession. I woke up to the spirit of breath as a small child in Catholic school, and the priest talked about God forming the body of man from the dust of the earth and breathing into the nostrils of man the breath of life. I mean, I got so excited. I guess I got too excited because I have very vague memories, but I remember the nun tapping me on my head and the priest pushing my shoulders, trying to get me back in my seat. I guess I got a little too animated. But and then every job I've ever had, it was like the spirit of breath just kept sticking my nose in the breath. And so my first job was an X-ray technician, and I was telling people, take in a deep breath, hold it. And then I went into the Navy. I was a deep sea diver. I did underwater rescue. I set the record for breath holding. I was mixing gases for deep sea diving. And so I've never been able to avoid or escape the breath. It's taken me to 67 countries so far, and I've had my hands on 250,000 people while they breathe. And so, that much practice over 50 years, you can't help but get good at stuff. And so I'm really blessed with my work. I think I'm living the dream. I mean, all I have to do to make money is breathe.
That is abundance thinking. With every breath, you will make money. I love that prosperity thought. Hold that for a moment. Oh my goodness. I love it. So I have to tell you, I feel like I need to say hi. My name is Jessica, and I feel like I don't know how to breathe right. Like I get very frustrated. My husband constantly does breathing exercises. I've tried several. He holds his hand on my diaphragm and says you're supposed to, breathe here. And I never feel like I'm doing it right. Like I get all caught up and frustrated in it that it keeps me from being able to like meditate and relax because I'm so frustrated. So talk us through how can we fix this?
Well, there's good and there's better. There's not good and bad. There's good and better. Okay. So you must be doing something right because here you are, still alive. And so I'll give you credit for that. But hey, breathing is an art and it's a
Mm,
science. And for me, it's like listening to a symphony orchestra. When I was a kid and the Beatles came out and we were turned
mhm.
on to music, and I was sitting in music class and the nun was playing, and we were all so bored. It's like, oh, more violins, like, look. And so I listened to a symphony orchestra and all I heard was a whole bunch of big noise. But I was in Moscow in 1990, sitting in the back of an empty auditorium while this famous conductor was working with the Moscow Symphony Orchestra, and he kept stopping, and he would stop and he'd point to one violinist and he'd say, you were too soon or you were too late. And I'm thinking, how the heck does he even listen? There's 40 violinists and he can listen to one. He stopped and he talked to a flute player and he said, your note was too loud. I'm going, holy crap, I didn't even know there was a flute player in the band. And so he he was obviously so much better at appreciating music, at making music. And so it's
Mhm.
like that with the breath. there are certain points in the breathing that people have never observed. And those points are like a key, like a doorway to a new consciousness, a new reality, but they're very subtle. And so really I would just substitute all your effort and all your angst around breathing and just replace it with simple observation. It's meditative awareness, it's mindfulness. Don't
Mm,
breathe in any special way. Just take all your attention, all your energy, and focus it on your breathing, and just let the breath come and go by itself, and tune into it like a lover tunes into their lover. Like you want
mhm,
to you want to catch little details, you want to enjoy every little sensation, you want to track the movements. That gets your foot in the door, and from there, pardon the pun, but you'll be inspired about how to practice, what to practice. Make your inhale longer, make your exhale longer. Pause
mhm.
after the exhale and relax and wait for the next breath to come in. Put some intention behind the breathing. Breathe, visualize while you breathe. Repeat affirmations with the inhale and with the exhale, and you're in the game. And it gets much easier as you go along, and it gets much better.
I've been recently doing so I have been doing a cleanse that I'll be on a journey for. I'm envisioning at least a year. I'm doing a really long-term cleanse for myself, meaning I'm, drinking lots of water. I'm getting 8 hours of sleep. I'm exercising every day. I'm not drinking coffee or alcohol. I'm not taking in any sugar. I'm only eating fresh vegetables and fruit. And I've been successfully doing this for about a month now. And I'm only doing lean meats and very small portions of that, no processed food whatsoever. And so, one of the things I've been doing for energy, because I read that this would help, was I breathe out for 5, no, in for 5, and then out for 6. And then the other one I heard was the breathe in for 3, out for 3, and then hold for 3. And doing that, at least 4 times over or whatever. So, um, what are some of I mean, I love the idea of focusing on the details, the sensations, the experience of breath that you first suggested, but do you have something that is helpful in breathing, that different kinds of breathing do different kinds of things for you? They can relax you, they could actually give you energy and renew you. Like there's different I know just a little bit, so I'm hoping you could expand on that much more intelligently than I.
No, breathing is one of the only operations functions in our body that's completely automatic and totally under our control. So for me, that's not an accident. That's not a coincidence. That's an
Mhm,
invitation. That's an opportunity to take
mhm,
part in our own nature, in our own evolution. And
mhm,
so when you breathe in, you light up the sympathetic branch of your nervous system. And with the exhale, you lean into the parasympathetic branch, right? So the sympathetic is, fight, the fight and flight mechanism, performance, action. Parasympathetic is rest and recover. And so when you breathe, you are detoxing. I mean, this is a really interesting little factoid. Every biological organism needs to excrete wastes. Otherwise, it's not going to live. So
mhm.
we only release 3% of our metabolic wastes through bowel movements, right? 7% through urination, 20% through perspiration, and that leaves the mother lode of metabolic wastes. 70% is released through respiration. So
Wow.
conscious breathing is the most powerful detoxing practice we have. It's already the most powerful detoxing operation in our system. And when you do it more consciously, you turbocharge, you ramp up the benefits. And so you can breathe in ways that you lean into the sympathetic, activate, energize, perform, show up. um, or you can lean into breathing techniques and exercises that move you towards the rest and digest and recover and renew and reboot. That's the parasympathetic. And you can practice breathing set techniques that balance those two. For example, I work with special forces, Navy SEALs,
Mhm,
mixed martial artists, and so on. And the perfect flow state is a combination of being energized and being relaxed. It's being very alert and very charged, and being very calm and peaceful. And most people give up one for the other. If
Mhm.
they breathe in a powerful way, they don't relax. And when they relax, they don't breathe. And so the
Mhm.
secret sauce is learning how to breathe so that you have your cake and eat it too. It's a breathing that energizes you, and it's a breathing that relaxes you. And so it's a matter of training. We already have breathing habits. And most of the breathing habits, most people, their breathing habits are not the most resourceful. They've learned to hold their breath to be invisible. They've learned to hold their breath not to offend someone. They've learned to hold their breath to keep out toxic forces, or to hold in things they don't want people to know about them. And so breath holding is one of those unconscious habits. And another unconscious habit is over breathing, where you breathe in, you don't really complete the exhale, and already you breathe in again, and you don't quite complete the exhale, and already you breathe in. And so they're actually got their foot on the adrenaline button all day without realizing it, because of their unconscious breathing habits. So
Mhm.
I start everybody off with natural breathing responses that nobody needs to teach you. For example, a sigh of relief. So if anybody's listening or watching, do that right now. Just give yourself the most beautiful, luxurious, delicious sigh of relief that you can. Take a long inhale in through your nose. Imagine your favorite fragrance. Visualize the most beautiful things you can visualize. Focus on the most beautiful feelings. And then let go with a sigh of relief. And very deliberately feel yourself relax. Relax your jaw, relax your neck, relax your shoulders. Because while you're releasing the breath, if you can release muscles and joints, you're going to vent the stress and tension that's trapped in the body. And if you repeat this, and the latest breathing study out of Stanford University, the Uberman's laboratory, came out about 3 months ago, is called cyclical sighing. And they studied it. 5 minutes of just taking one sigh of relief after the other has more benefits than any meditation technique they studied and any breathing practices that they've studied. Simply taking one sigh of relief after the other.
For
And then it's
5
like
minutes?
5 minutes.
It feels like
20%,
a long time when you're just breathing.
20% reduction in cortisol levels and stress hormones,
Okay.
activation of creativity, of focus, of awareness. It's like really cool, unbelievable. There's something so simple. And so, but it's not what you get out of breathing, it's what you put into it. So you
Mm,
have to put real consciousness, real energy, real heart into it. And
mm,
and if you do, and you can link it with affirmation. So as I'm breathing in, I might think I'm strong and healthy. And on the exhale, I'm relaxed and calm. Or any power statements or
mhm.
declarations, affirmations that you practice, link them to the breath, and it turbocharges those intentions.
Hmm. Wow, that I think that may be worth the 5 minutes. It's funny, my husband's been saying for years that, especially if I was stressed about something or something, we just he does just make me do this deep out loud sound, and I always feel better. So,
Yeah.
over the 25 years with him, I just keep having to tell him how right he is. And now here you are telling me again how right he is.
Well, listen, I got something you can bring back home to him and notch up what he already understands and feels. And that's the second natural response that I teach, and it's yawning.
Ah,
Yawning might be the most underestimated, overlooked neurological activity that neuroscientists have found. It lights up
mhm,
more parts of the brain than just about any single activity. A simple yawn, doing it consciously. And people yawn when they're tired. They yawn when they first wake up and they're full of energy.
mm,
Animals yawn before they fight. They yawn after the fight is over. We yawn when the sometimes sun triggers yawning. And
mm,
scientists are starting to, there's a lot of theories like, wow, why would nature, what's this about? And they seem to be gravitating around the idea that yawning cools the brain. There are a lot of other benefits, but that's one of them. We're hot-headed and we're thinking and we're busy. And so yawning, they're starting to understand cools the brain, but that's only one thing that it does.
Mm,
And my teaching is yawning is yoga. When you yawn, you have a natural urge to stretch. And so,
mhm,
and you want to make noise. It's a creative moment. It's a moment of being purely natural. And we've learned to stifle our yawns. We've learned that it's impolite. How dare you
mhm.
yawn when I'm talking to you? Or I have a psychiatrist friend, Pat Gerbach, who, by the way, wrote a beautiful book, her and her husband, called The Healing Art of Breathing. And and she says, "Look, Dan, I'm a psychiatrist. I can't go while people are talking to me, like." But she feels the urge to do it because her body is prompting her to, release the energy she's picking up from other people, and so she
Mhm,
forces herself to stifle it so as not to offend or, upset or whatever her
mhm.
patients. I don't have that problem. I'm free to yawn whenever I feel like it, and then when I do, I like to celebrate it because it's contagious. That's one of the
Ah,
beautiful
it
things about
is.
it. It's contagious. What's that about? Well, the same part of the brain that controls the yawn, the precuneus, I believe it's called, is also the part of the brain that's responsible for empathy. So
Ah,
when I'm teaching this live, I point that out and I go, well, why do sociopaths, psychopaths do not share the tendency to yawn? For them, it's not contagious. Well, guess what? They're psychopaths. They
ah,
have no empathy. And so I look around the room and I go, who's not yawning right now?
That's awesome. I love that. I love that. So when a customer comes to you, what's some of their pains? Is it they're overstressed or they're feeling depleted or tired? They don't have enough energy. What causes someone to come and say, I really need Dan, the breath master?
Well, let me, and answer that, let me tell you a little story. I was minding my own business one day. I think I was doing something with my son, and my phone rang. So I pick up my phone. Yeah, hey, this is Dan. And they go, oh, this is Dan. Hey, this is Tony Robbins. I went, get the fuck out of here. I said, come on, who is this? Is this Josh? Is this
LinkedIn, you
David? Come
gotta
on,
be
Tony
careful.
Robbins.
LinkedIn, we're sorry you didn't hear
Oh
that.
no, it's Tony Robbins, really. I said, well, wow, thanks for calling. Well, like, what? Wow, okay, cool. He said, no, I heard that you've been studying breathing for like 40 years. This was 10 years ago. And he said, I just want to pick your brain. And so I said, well, pick away. You can pick my nose, you can pick
Did you
whatever you
tell him
like.
it'll cost him $5,000? Like, isn't that what he charges people to walk on hot coals?
Yeah. And so and so I said, well, let's work together. I'm glad. So we set a Skype appointment, and so I asked him, I can share this because he shared it. I said, so what do you want? What are you after? What do you come to me breathwork for? He said, well, at the moment, like high blood pressure. I'm really working with my blood pressure. I said, "Ha, that's a no-brainer." In 15 minutes, well, we worked for about 30 minutes, but he lowered his blood pressure by 15 points. It's never gone back up. So he became like an instant fan, and we've worked with a lot of stuff since then. I mean, he's like the ever ready bunny. The guy has no
Yes,
off
he
button,
is. He
you
does.
know. For him,
Unbelievable.
several times I've managed to get with him for an hour at his house or someplace in one of his hotels, and we breathe for a whole hour. That's so rare. So for me, getting 20 minutes with him, that's epic. And we're even zeroing it down to like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So how do you integrate breath work into your daily life? How do you go really deep, really fast? How do you reboot and re-energize really quickly on demand? Those are the kind of skills that he's interested in, because And I think we all should be, because we don't have the luxury
Mhm.
of going to a cave or an ashram for 20 years and becoming enlightened and then help change the world. We're in the middle of it. We got to get
Mhm.
into the game right now and make a difference. And so um, relaxing, energizing, managing your emotional state, managing your mental state, managing your physiology, managing your arousal, increasing your situational awareness, becoming more interoceptive, opening your heart. How about learning to breathe, to open your heart in this world? Like, phew, we need more love. We need more, we need more compassion. We need more tolerance. And so breathing becomes something you can do to interrupt a pattern when you get upset or you get hijacked by your emotions. You can use your breath to come back into your center. And when you don't have energy and you don't think you can keep going, but you've got important things to do, there's an understanding in the SEAL team world. And it says when you think you're out of energy, when you can't run another step, you still have 40% juice in your battery. You just haven't learned how to tap it. And so for me,
Mhm.
tapping that energy is about learning how to breathe. And I mean, if even if you're just a mother and your baby's crying in the middle of the night and you're exhausted, what do? You have to respond. So you learn how to wake yourself up quickly, and then you learn how to go back to sleep quickly. And all you do is practice breathing.
So what is the technique to breathe the best way to help reduce your blood pressure? Because I'm interested.
Yeah.
And by the way, we're
Low.
not giving you medical or legal advice. This is what we've found has worked for us. So that's my disclaimer. We're not doctors. Go see your doctor. But these are ideas and philosophies and study that Dan has done over his lifetime for what works for him. And I'd like to be open to trying it for me. So I had to throw the legal disclaimer out there.
Well, so look, every psychological state, every emotional state, every physiological state, every chemical, biological state has a corresponding breathing pattern, an
Mhm.
associated breathing quality. And so we know that when we're upset and angry and afraid, we breathe different than when we're peaceful and calm and relaxed. And
Mhm.
anybody can observe that. When your state changes, your breathing pattern changes. And that's the magic. It's a two-way street. When you change your breathing pattern, you change your state. So high blood pressure, for example, is associated with certain breathing patterns. One of the major insights recently in science and medicine is what's talked about as the thoracic pump, and that is that the heart is not the only thing that's responsible for circulating blood through your body. Your breathing is half the work of circulating fluids in your body is done by breathing. So if you're not breathing diaphragmatically and deep and slow into your belly, the heart has to work overtime. And now they're
Mhm.
realizing that that's probably the cause of essential hypertension. Essential
Mhm.
hypertension is high blood pressure with no known cause. Well, what if the cause is simply you're just breathing too shallow by habit? And if you just consciously
Mhm.
breathe more slowly and deeply, sure enough, breath heart rate goes down. You mentioned 5 seconds in and 6 seconds out is something you practice. That's
Mhm.
called coherent breathing. It's 5.5 breaths a minute. In some people, it's in for 5, out for 5, or in for 6, out for 6. But anywhere in that area, within 5 minutes, plenty of scientific studies lowers cortisol levels by 20%, lowers heart rate, lowers blood pressure. Anybody can do this just by getting into that gentle pattern, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, and putting your hands over your belly and feeling like your belly is filling up and emptying. And relaxed, and that's enough. And you get better and better at it. You
Mhm.
also mentioned like breathing in for 3, holding for 3, something like that.
Yeah.
What you're starting to pointing to is box breathing, which is used by
Mhm.
special forces and Navy
Mhm.
SEALs and first responders. Inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4, hold 4. In 4, hold 4, out 4, hold. This is called box breathing. People use it before an important presentation. You're about to go on stage. You don't want to go out there hyper, and you don't want to go out there with no energy. So you balance parasympathetic, sympathetic, and you practice those pauses, which gives you a sense of being in control. So, to lower your blood pressure, it's the same breathing as de-stressing as anti-anxiety breath. Breathe low into your belly and slow your breathing down. Get yourself out of that hyper state by deliberately slowing your breathing down and aiming the breath down into the floor of your pelvis, into your lower belly. And it's a meditation as much as it is an exercise. It's a mindfulness practice. And so meditation has proven to lower people's blood pressure and it works for anti-anxiety. So this breathing puts together both meditation and these actual physiological state changing practices. So it's a no-brainer. It works every time for everybody, as long as you have a belly button and you can pay attention to anything. You can pay attention to your breath.
So it sounds like I need to do a 5 minutes of the ah breathing and then 5 minutes of the belly breathing. That's 10 minutes of breathing a day. And it seems reasonable. Seems like I should be able to manage that. Throw in
Forrest
some
Gump, you're a
occasional
genius.
box breathing and I might be somewhere. So
Hey,
how
that's perfect. Well, you just invented a great protocol, a great daily practice. 5 minutes of active stretching, energizing breathing, and then 5 minutes of balancing, relaxing breathing. Brilliant.
I heard it somewhere. Some great guy came on my show and inspired me. So, how do you work with your customers? Is it in person workshops? Is it on virtual, on Zoom? Is it online courses? Is it all of the above? How does a customer work with you?
Well, I I'm rarely doing private individual sessions. I have some VIP clients, but it's just not sustainable. I mean, my record is I worked with 11 people in one day, an hour each. But that's not sustainable. I want to serve millions of people. There's just no way
Mm,
that I can get my hands on I've tried. I've been to
mhm.
67 countries. I've had my hands on a quarter of a million people, and I've spent more than an hour with tens of thousands of people. And so now when I do individual sessions, we get a group of 4 people. We spend a day and everybody gets an individual session while everybody else supports and watches and gets feedback. So that's my style for individual training these days. But
Mhm.
mostly I'm working in groups. I'm a road warrior. I'm in, 8, 9 countries every year. I have been for the last 30 years, except for COVID. That kind of put a
Mhm.
damper on some things. Um, and I have an online course, Breathwork Fundamentals. It's been very popular. And I do a lot of Zoom group Zoom calls, let's say coaching calls and that sort
Mhm.
of thing. Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I feel like I'm silly asking you this, but this is the part of the show where I always ask our guests to give us a tip, something they can do today. I feel like our entire interview has been tips of things they can do today. I mean, we even built a whole breath protocol while we were at it for daily breathing. But how about
Yeah.
give us just a really powerful tip for someone to get started today?
Okay. So use the question, what's important? Right. So, I
Mm,
mean, we need to stop every now and then and just, refocus. Okay. What's important? I got a million things to do, or I got, what's really important? What's the most important thing? And so the way you do that, don't just ask the question and make it a head thing. You ask that question, okay, and try this in the middle of an argument. Me, 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 me. And you stop and you go, okay, what's really important right now? And you take a breath. Everything that happens from then on is going to be different than if you hadn't stopped and taken that breath, right? Yeah.
mm.
It's the other person, if they still want to argue, they're like a doofus holding a ping pong paddle and there's nobody to play with. And so it changes the energy immediately. And so if you ask that question, sit on the edge of your bed in the morning or at any time and go, okay, what's important? And then take a breath, a sigh of relief.
Mm,
And don't look for an answer, wait for something. And
mm,
ask again. If something comes, okay, making that phone call. right? Taking another breath. What's really important? Making sure that that phone call brings me what I want from it. Okay, great. Taking another breath. What's the most important thing?
Mhm.
Having a real impact in the world, right? So your mind is going to start to reveal your highest aspirations, your deepest longings, and so on. And so
Mhm.
do that as an exercise. Link taking sighs of relief, big, expansive inhale, a nice sigh of relief, and linking it to that question, what's important? And watch your intuition wake up and give you answers. Yeah. So simple practice, but very, very useful.
I love that. I love that so much. So, what one of the reasons that I started this show, and from episode one, we've always taken a moment of pause, a breath, if you would, in the show to talk about a cause that is close to our guest's heart. And so, share with us, Dan, a cause that is close to your heart.
Well, I was a deep sea diver. I was a medical person in the military. I rescued dying, drowning people. So my heart is really with first responders, veterans.
Hmm.
And so I really love supporting that community. And the
Hmm.
other is I woke up to the spirit of breath as a child in school. They don't teach breathing in school. Well, they are now. I'm part of an organization, a consulting organization for the UN, the IBF, that we've developed a program for training school teachers and anybody who works with kids to bring these breathing practices to young kids, teach them how to regulate their emotions when they're still young, give them an advantage. How do it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon and you're having that dip in, that sugar dip or whatever. How do you come back and be present? And how do you get over bullying? And how do you manage the hormones and stuff that are like going wild in your system?
Hmm.
You learn to breathe and you learn to practice breath work. So my heart is also in bringing breath work into schools. So those are my two, at this point, two of my real passions.
I totally need to introduce you to someone, Lily. She wrote recently released a book that is a tool and resource book for caregivers. Caregivers is another group that really needs your breath work. And I know she has guest writers come in for her newsletter and for her other things that she promotes and puts out as resources for these
Mm.
individuals who are doing really some of the greatest work in the world. Like you said, these first responders and full-time caregivers. I mean, people matter most. People is the point. That's why we're here on this planet, is for our self-growth and for each other. And then we only grow by helping one another, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's the point. And so so shout out for Lily. We'll make sure her link to her book is in the chat as well of this show, but totally got to connect the two of them. Speaking of books, I am creating an ultimate book list for all the amazing guests that have come. And we like to start with a book not written by our guests that inspired their personal life or helped them grow their business. You mentioned a book earlier. What was the name of that book again? Um,
Oh, wow, I already forgot.
and this is live, ladies and gentlemen, so that does happen. But you mentioned a book about it was about breathing. It was about learning how to breathe. But share with us a book that
There are,
I'm sure there's
since I wrote my book, in 2015, there's been 100 books written about breathing. There are so many
mm,
great books out there about breathing. Top of my list these days is James Nestor's book, Breathe, Patrick McEwen, The Breathing Cure, books on
mm,
breath work. The one that touched me most as a teenager was Rama Sharaka's book, The Science of Breath. And I went on
mm,
to read Science of Breath by Swami Rama. These are traditional books in traditional yoga, pranayama. It's kind of
mm,
very pure, sort of ancient source of even today's modern breathwork movement.
I love that. Now you are an author, so tell us about your book.
Yeah, my book, Just Breathe. I have the opposite story of most authors. You write your epic book, you send it to 100 publishers, and you get 100 Dear John letters back. Well, Simon and Schuster just called me. So I'm like, How does that happen? I don't know. I had a book called Shut Up and Breathe, and it was an ebook that's self-published. And I guess that's what caught Judith Kerr, the editor of Simon Schuster. And so they gave me an advance, an unknown, untested author, very rare.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's called Just Breathe, Mastering Breathwork for Success in Life, Love, Business, and Beyond. And it's in 12 languages. And so I suggest read it. I tried to make it something that brings together all of the wisdom around breath, breathing for body, breathing for mind, breathing for spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And you can open it anywhere and you can find something to practice to help you with whatever you're dealing with.
I love that. I love that. I've been enjoying this interview with you so much. I hope you've been having as much fun as me. And if you're out there and you're an author, we had a fiction author, a very interesting topic and book last night. I interviewed someone who wrote someone in the fiction space. We've had a ton of nonfiction authors, speakers, coaches, consultants, industry experts from all over the world. If you're thinking, wait, that's me, I'm an industry expert, I can help improve someone's personal life or grow their business, reach out to me and my team, and we'll get you the steps to be featured on the show. We'd love to have you, but don't be selfish. It's not nice. We want you to think of others. So I bet you know another industry expert who should be on our show. So share that with us. Do an email introduction. Introduce us on LinkedIn or one of the many platforms that we're running this show on, so that we can get them featured as well. And you'll be their hero and ours. So before we say goodbye, as we come to a close of this amazing and intense show, much longer than many of our shows, but we needed to take a moment and just breathe. So we needed all this great information. Hit that share button, hit that like, put some comments in there. Tell us your breathing techniques and exercises, and we can always learn from you too. But before we head out, I'm going to snag Dan for one final piece of information or inspiration to close the show out with today.
Wow, thank you. Well, what if you make every breath a prayer? What do you hope for? What do you wish for the
Mhm.
world? If you had a magic wand, ding, what would you fix, right? So when you breathe, focus on something like a prayer, right? Make every breath a prayer. And if you really want to live a life that's joy and fulfilling, you have to recognize and admit and acknowledge that every breath we take is a blessing. You
Mm.
know, it's a miracle we're even alive and we're here, and
Mhm.
it behooves us to kind of remember that. And if you could remember that every breath is a blessing, I don't know where there's time or space for problems or suffering.
Yeah, I got rid of those things a long time ago. I call them puzzles because puzzles are fun and solvable. And people will go out and buy a puzzle, but I don't see them buying any suffering off the rack. At least not intentionally. And if they are, that's a whole nother therapeutic conversation. So
Yay. Hey, well, listen, breath work wakes up the mysterious aspects of our being, and I love mysteries.
well, we have talked about and we have talked about yawning, and we have talked about stretching and breathing. And the only piece we missed that I will comment is laughter. Really just a deep belly laugh. Spend some time and just giggle. I know people who celebrate laughing yoga, and it does things to our entire body. And I know Dan knows the science behind that too, way better than I. But make sure you laugh. So, as always, everyone, again, thank you for watching and sharing. And thank you for sharing with us your thoughts and more information we might not know about. And I just want to close out, as I always do, that I'm Jessica Koch, your host. This has been Profound Professionals. And please be kind to yourself and be kind to each other. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, everyone.